Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, where we dive into the world of helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul. In each episode, we talk with the technicians, engineers, and experts who keep helicopters flying. Because at the end of the day, no maintenance, no mission.
I'd been supporting the Idaho National Guard for any number of months. They were using the commercial ladders that you buy at the big box stores, and their Lakotas were up on top of dollies. One Friday afternoon, one of the young mechanics was on his standard commercial grade ladder that was parked parallel to the aircraft. He's got 1 foot on the top rung of the ladder, 1 foot up on the airframe, and he's in this terribly awkward position for hours as he's performing flight critical maintenance. And I'm off to the side. I'm doing the tech rec pose, standing there with my hands in my pocket, just wanting to be available if he had a question. But I'm observing him on this ladder, and it's kind of creaking back and forth, and he's unstable. And I'm just beginning to envision that ladder going out from underneath him dropping down, smacking his head on the dolly, then rolling down 2 more feet to the concrete floor. And as I'm watching him, I'm actually getting a bit angry, recognizing that in my career of aviation at that time was pushing 30 years. Nothing had changed. He was doing exactly what I did, which was exactly the same thing the previous generation did. And so I close up that hitch. It's a Friday afternoon. I had a 6-hour drive back to my hometown in Bend, and I'm going across the high desert that evening. And I kind of went through a couple phases of emotion. First 100 miles was kind of a stage of disbelief. I mean, seriously, is this where this industry is still at? And then I had about the next 100 miles was developing anger. Now, anger certainly is an emotion that has its pros and cons, but if you channel it into inspiration, if you will, it can be a very great motivator. And so the last 100 miles going back home across the high desert, it was, I'm going to do something about this.
Welcome to part 2 of our conversation. If you missed part 1, you can find it in our previous episode. Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS and in partnership with Vertical Magazine. In this 2-part Vertical MRO Podcast series, Faith Ortega and I have an engaging conversation with Dale Neubauer, an AMP and CEO of HeliLadder, and Drew Benton Jr., the owner of Helicopter Maintenance Solutions. During the conversation, they explore their journeys in the helicopter community. They discuss the professional challenges faced by helicopter technicians, the importance of teamwork and communication, and the critical nature of ensuring aircraft are airworthy. Dale talks about how his experiences in the helicopter air ambulance segment impacted his personal and professional life. He shares a personal story you won't want to miss that highlights the impact of maintenance on patient outcomes and the lessons learned from both successes and failures in the field. Dale talks about the motivation for he and his wife Susie to create and launch HeliLadder in 2015. Starting from their garage with a shared vision to improve aircraft maintenance safety and efficiency, Dale's 30 years of experience in aircraft maintenance provided the foundation for creating the world's first modular and portable workstand. Driven by a passion for changing how maintenance is performed, Dale and Susie's work at HeliLadder continues to prioritize safety, comfort, and quality. Dale's background and commitment underscore the company's mission to provide safe, efficient, and reliable aircraft maintenance, making a tangible difference in the aviation industry through innovative solutions and unwavering dedication. Thank you to this episode's sponsors: Rotorcraft Repair and Manufacturing, Metro Aviation, and Airbus. That's really cool. For me, being able to be a part of all these conversations on this podcast and the Hangar Z podcast, I like to talk to people and ask, what's the thing that drew you to aviation? And a lot of times it's these small moments that you've just described. That someone taking the time to open up the aircraft for them to be able to crawl around the inside of it and look at it and ask questions that maybe you couldn't ask outside of this one time. And that's inspired so many folks. So, think through that group of kids. You may have directly impacted, multiple kids in that one visit where now Yes. They might want to pursue helicopter aviation. Given where we are in today's world of recruitment and retention, every one of those people are important.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough.
The other part I'll touch on is just that incident you're talking about, the hurricane, the recent flooding in Texas. We're 20 years post-Katrina, all these major natural disasters that we've seen the helicopter community respond to really just highlights and shows the strength and ability of our community to show up in these natural disasters and these times of crisis and deliver.
Yes,
really
100%.
Makes me proud to be a part of this community when you see those types of responses. And Faith, I know on the daily, you kind of see that in a small way, having a direct impact on the positive outcome of something that we've had a hand in. Really, really cool.
That's my favorite thing, is getting to meet like-minded people. And I've said this before, and as I've heard all of you guys echo this in your conversations, is it's the community of people that are in this little niche part of our industry. And I truly think, like, don't get me wrong, in any job that you have, no matter what job it could be, you've always got those people that are just kind of the clock in, clock out people, right? It pays the bills. It does the things that it needs them to do. It feeds their families. But I truly feel like that percentage in our industry is so small, and the masses truly love what they do. They're trying to make a difference. They're trying to improve. They're trying to be better. They're bettering themselves, the industry as a whole. Like, I don't know. It's so hard to describe to people that just don't understand it, or they're not a part of it. And I've been really impressed. Like I said, I truly believe that I was interested in it, and I was like, yeah, this seems like a cool thing to do. And then I met the type of people that are in it, and there was no leaving. And that's why I'm like, it's just lit the fire under my behind to tell other people, like, we need people. I don't know how you wouldn't want to do this once you get the taste of it. There's so much that you can do. Like, I even try to tell, like, friends, family members, I'm like, oh, you're in legal? Oh, there's stuff you can do. Aviation legal. I'm sure there's a huge, advocacy for that, and probably not enough people. Maintenance, secretarial work, records. Like, there's so many different ways that you could kind of, finagle your way into this and still be a part of it. You don't have to fix, you don't have to fly.
Yeah.
There's so many different other modes of helicopter transportation that you could find a way to be a part of and still be a part of the camaraderie. And yeah, it's kind of culty. I don't know. I'm like, I'm trying to sell something here, but yeah, it's just, I've really, really liked it. And that's been a big part of my mission, is to just, just be transparent. And there's so many different ways that you can get involved. And I know you were talking about, like, the cadets and some of the younger folks that are interested. And there's nothing else that makes me more happy than the nonprofit I volunteer with, and we get a bunch of kids interested. You can tell our classes where there's the kids that, their mom signed them up for a Saturday to kind of get them out of the house. But then you've got the 1 out of the 10 that's just on your tail asking questions. He's like, well, can I just sit up here with you guys and talk? Or can I do my homework in the hangar? And I'm like, yes, absolutely. And it was just like,
I have one of those.
It makes me so happy to see that there are, kids like that are like, they're not being influenced or kind of pushed by their parents. They're like, I just think that this is cool. And I'm like, that just makes me so happy.
Yeah. Good on you for that. That nonprofit donation of your time is huge. I want to kind of jump, I wouldn't say ahead. This is more back, I guess, for Dale, and go into your time as a tech rep for Airbus. And there's a particular story I want to get to is in regards to Lakota and what you saw with the helicopters. But tell us about your time as a tech rep and what you enjoyed about that and some of your experiences there.
Working for Airbus as a field rep was my dream job come true. At that stage of my career, I did have quite a bit of experience. I did feel like I had maybe a different role to play, and so stepping into the field rep position, and this was for the Lakota program, the UH-72s or EC-145s. National Guard was integrating those into their bases across the nation. And I was hired initially to go to Boise, Idaho to support the Idaho National Guard as they were bringing in a couple medevac Lakotas. It was just a great job to transition from fixing things to help mentoring the younger generation on how to maintain this particular aircraft. During that same time frame with Airbus, I had the chance to go to Germany for a summer to support one of the Army bases there. Just a spectacular opportunity. Cool. I was happy as a clam working as a tech rep.
Yeah, I think what you just brought up, the travel that's associated and affiliated with our industry is great too. Specifically on the AMP side, a lot of folks are going to travel all over the world to work on really cool products in places they probably never imagined, like New Guinea. Drew, for you, any unique travel experiences when it comes to stuff you did?
Yeah, gosh, I've been to Iraq and Kuwait. Last summer, I went down to Grenada twice for Christian organization here in North Carolina, Samaritan's Purse. I went and helped them with their new aircraft. Gosh, whereabouts have I been? I've been to Prague,
Wow.
in the Czech Republic.
That's my wife's. That's the one place she says we absolutely have to go to is Prague.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's a bucket list place for us. Faith, for you, you've had some unique experiences too. Where have you been that's like, oh, that was cool?
Most of the places that I've been were in the States, but I did a pre-buy from a prior company in Costa Rica, and that was really cool. Done a couple assistance jobs with people trying to buy aircraft internationally, but most of that was just like on the phone, Zoom, FaceTime type stuff. So I didn't have to go. They just had questions. They had someone else physically there doing the pre-buy, but just wanted to use me as another resource. So, but I will say even stateside, some of the little quaint airports that you run into, like I've got a list of places just from the prior company I worked at. And I'm like, okay, I want to do a cross country here and here and here and here. And just show my instructor, like some of the cool places I've been. I wasn't in a helicopter, I was fixing the helicopter there, but I got to go up and see the area. And it's funny, you guys have probably experienced this too. You know, not that you take it for granted, but you go up in so many cool places that it's almost kind of ruined me. Like my husband and I will be on vacation. And he's like, let's take a helicopter tour of, and I'm like, let's go here or there, you know. Not that I wouldn't, because don't get me wrong, I love to go up, but there's been a couple places, and I'm like, you know, the Grand Canyon, Alaska, Hawaii, like I have some staple places for sure. But, you know, like we'll be on a vacation or passing through somewhere, and, you know, we're in like Michigan, and he's like, oh, let's do a helicopter ride. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So, but It's just funny because you get spoiled going up around like Boston and New York and Miami and all these cool places. So that was also why I quickly became the track and balance person, because I figured out it got me the most front seat time. So I was like, they're like, oh, you're really going to scratch your head and want to pull your head out. I'm like, it'll be worth the flight to do the torque checks. I'll do it. So
yeah, smart. Very smart. Dale, going back to you, when it came to Lakota, tell us about what your observations were as far as the ladders that you were seeing being used in the maintenance side of Lakota, and how that inspired you to start your company. Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Yeah, well, it was certainly a defining moment. So I'd been supporting the Idaho National Guard for any number of months, and they were using the customary commercial ladders that you buy at the big box stores, and their Lakotas were up on top of dollies. And one particular day, it was a Friday afternoon, one of the young mechanics, was on his standard commercial grade ladder that was parked parallel to the aircraft. He's got 1 foot on the top rung of the ladder, 1 foot up on the airframe, and he's in this terribly awkward position for hours as he's performing flight critical maintenance. And I'm off to the side. I'm doing the tech rec pose, standing there with my hands in my pocket, you know, just wanting to be available if he had a question. But I'm observing him on this ladder, and it's kind of creaking back and forth, and he's unstable. And I'm just beginning to envision that ladder going out from underneath him dropping down, smacking his head on the dolly, then rolling down 2 more feet to the concrete floor. And as I'm watching him, I'm actually getting a bit angry, recognizing that in my career of aviation at that time was pushing 30 years, nothing had changed. He was doing exactly what I did, which was exactly the same thing the previous generation did. And so I close up that hitch. It's a Friday afternoon. I had a 6-hour drive back to my hometown in Bend, Oregon, and I'm going across the high desert that evening. And I kind of went through a couple phases of emotion. First 100 miles was kind of a stage of disbelief. And then I had about the next 100 miles was developing anger of, admittedly, you know, what the hell? Is this where this industry's still at? And I started getting a bit angry. Now, anger certainly is an emotion that has its pros and cons, but if you channel it into inspiration, if you will, it can be a very great motivator. And so the last 100 miles going back home across the high desert, it was, I'm going to do something about this. And I had, 5 years before, had sketched out some little ideas on a cantilevered ladder. And they were just ideas, had never really acted upon them. But as I drove across the high desert heading home, I started mulling those ideas over. Get home that Friday night, and Saturday morning I'm down at the box store buying a couple aluminum ladders. Get back home to my little shop, pull out my sheet metal tools, and I started piecing together my first prototype. That moment with the National Guard, watching the younger generation essentially suffer at his task as I and my peers had done, was my motivator to get this project moving.
Yeah, that's cool. What I love about that, and it's a similar story with what you described with the tools. You know, you find something that bothers you, and instead of just complaining about it, you actually come up with a solution. That's the kind of innovation, that's the kind of motivation that I think we as an industry need to propel ourselves forward. So it's really cool hearing you talk about that, and then hearing about the action that comes from that. Talk about that first prototype. You know, I can envision in my head kind of what you're talking about, but what it looked like, and once it was created, was it functional in the way that you thought it would be?
Well, I would say first off, I probably wouldn't want to share a picture of it because I'd be kind of ashamed of my sheet metal skills on that. But it was, I just kind of hacked something together to go through the first iteration. It was simply a ladder with a lower leg at an angle, nothing more than that. And it was functional enough for me to set up next to the Lakota when I went back to Boise that following Monday, and be able to say, is the fit close? And so that was then the stepping stone of fine tuning, build another prototype, and then eventually hiring a design engineer, a gentleman by the name of Jack Arnold, who is just the master of looking at a piece of flat aluminum and figuring out how to fold it into unique shapes. And sat down with Jack and said, here's my idea, here's my concept. Can you put it into some CAD work? And he helped nurture that idea and develop some 3D models that we're able to then build off of.
Oh, cool. Now, I'm curious, that maintainer that was contorting his body to do some critical work, was he there? Was he able to see this prototype you brought in? And what was his response if he was there?
Yes, actually, he was there on the first prototype. And he actually, along with some of the rest of the National Guard crew, over the course of the year, got to see a couple of early developments of that product line. And as it turned out, I think the Idaho National Guard, they might have bought 4 of our ladders out of our second production run.
Wow.
And so it was kind of a homecoming in that respect, that later I got to personally deliver their first HeliLadder setup.
Wow. Like I kind of alluded to in the beginning of the conversation, I think sometimes these solutions, and I'm not inferring that what you developed is simple, because it's not, but the solution to a problem that is industry wide is literally in front of us every day.
Yes.
These ladders that people have been using since World War II, we've been looking at them for how long? And finally you're like, I'm going to do something about that. And you create it.
Yeah.
I think I hate ladders. I hate working on ladders, the traditional type, because of what you're talking about. You can't get the leverage you need to do anything. So you come up with this design that is transforming the way folks can do their work. Faith, you guys use their product, right, in your shops?
I was actually just telling Dale and Cody this the other day on the phone. We actually stumbled across our first HeliLadder on accident. So prior company I worked for, there was a local tourism company that went out of business, and they were selling a bunch of their stuff in lots. And so we were after, I don't know if it was a microvibe or what, but there was something specifically in lot A, B, C, whichever one it was we were bidding on, that we were after that. And there was a box in the corner, and they had a HeliLadder. And so some of the other techs that were on the shop floor, we got all the stuff in, and me and one of the other guys, he was younger, and at our school we had a HeliLadder, and we knew what it was. And so we unboxed it, and we looked at each other and we're like, jackpot. And they were like, it's a ladder. And I'm like, no. And I'm like, it's a HeliLadder. I'm like, it's at a different angle. And I'm like, and they're much taller. And so they were like, okay. And so me and him took some time and assembled it and put it together. And they were like, oh, that is pretty useful. And I'm like, yeah, and our shop floor that we worked at the main refurb center, it's only a handful of guys. And so it was funny, but whenever a project would get to a certain point, that ladder was fought after because everybody didn't have to stand up on the top deck at awkward angles. And especially if you're working on something like, an A-Star where you have the AVA, or you're working on like a 407 with the FROM and you're trying to put that up there, those are not very cumbersome things to get up top. And so when you're trying to stand on top of a ladder and keep your equilibrium, it's not an easy task. So, there were times even we're doing track and balance or whatever have you, they'd be like, well, grab a normal ladder and just grab it across the ramp. And I'm like, nope, I would literally push that thing like across the ramp because that was like, it's worth just to leave it out here for the day if we're going to be doing that many like finishing projects. Like I would rather not feel like my knees are shot by the end of the day. Like it's worth the one little walk that I have to do to get it out there and it's done. So yeah, but after that, I was like, oh, absolutely. So I'm kind of sad. We don't have any at my current location, but I am super stoked because Dale and his team were so kind and they sent me a HeliLadder. So I have one right now. It's in a box in my hangar. I just got back from vacation, so I haven't had time to assemble it just yet. But if you watch my channel, you're getting a tidbit, like a promo early here, because I haven't posted any pictures or anything, but we're going to do a time lapse of us putting it together and
Love it.
Using it. So we're pretty stoked.
Yeah. Drew, for you, what's your experience been?
Oh, my goodness. Where do I start? I was actually on my ladder today, my HeliLadder today, and I was training our 15-year-old apprentice on how to put blades on a 407. And this 407 is on low gear. And I'm up there taking the bolt or the nuts off the washers, nuts and the washers off. And I think Cody had sent me the torque wrench tray, the new one you guys have.
Yep.
Which is very useful. But I thought, if you ever drop one of these nuts or washers, it would hit the HeliLadder first. So that's another added protection from keeping stuff from falling on the helicopter. And that hit me today while I was using my HeliLadder, putting blades on the helicopter. But not that I
was
want
a design intent.
I
intended that. Yep.
That. But that was one thing I wanted to bring up today was, just that's one benefit. Not that you want to be dropping stuff, but if it happened, it would not hit the helicopter. It would hit the HeliLadder, which we don't want to scratch that magnificent paint job on the HeliLadder either, but it's a lot cheaper than aircraft paint. I've spent days on top of HeliLadders and changing shear bearings out on the ramp at RDU, and it's a totally different level of ladder safety and fatigue, and it's comfortable to work on. I can take my HeliLadder with me. I have an MX5. I can fold it up and put it in the truck, and if I have an emergency somewhere in AOG, I can just put it in the truck and off it goes. So it goes with me pretty much everywhere if I have to go out of the hangar. And all my guys use it. Actually, we're hoping to get some grant money from the local government, and we're going to actually buy a second HeliLadder and possibly some platforms eventually for both of them. So we use it a lot. You can't really say enough about it. Product improvement note, if you're working on a dolly, not that they're real heavy, but they're kind of cumbersome, it would be a good idea to maybe develop something where you could assist getting the HeliLadder on the dolly, like a heli wagon or something like that. We have a spare heli wagon in my hangar that a 505 lives on, and we just got done doing track and balance today on a 407 that's on low gear. So I said, just put the helicopter on the heli wagon and we'll put it inside and I don't have to put the wheels on it. Well, tomorrow I have to do all the follow-on torque checks. So we got to pick the HeliLadder up, put it on the heli wagon, and very carefully put it up against the helicopter. But that was something maybe we could talk about later is product improvement, that you could make something I don't know what. It's just an idea. But anyway, we use our HeliLadder all the time. I mean, it's just they've sent me some upgrades for our HeliLadder. The biggest one is the new wheels for them. That thing, you got to hang on to it or it'll roll off. The new wheels are awesome. But it works well. I use it on everything. 407, 206s, 427, 429, 222. We use it on all of them, and it fits nicely. And we deal with a lot of corporate aircraft here, and the number one rule at Helicopter Maintenance Solutions is don't scratch it, right? That's number one rule. So the HeliLadder has an added benefit where it's padded around the edges. So if you did accidentally brush up against the helicopter with it, it won't scratch it. So that's a huge plus for us because corporate helicopter paint jobs are super expensive, and I would even like to see more padding on there, but I get it. But what's on there is perfectly fine and it works well, and I don't think we've had one scratch from the HeliLadder at all on any of these aircraft.
Yep.
I think anytime something's designed with the end user in mind, with their input in place, is when you start coming up with some products that are really good. Looking at Chief, you had 30 plus years of experience to think through how to develop this thing that would make it in a way that is efficient and safe for everybody. And Drew touched on that. He talked about efficiency and safety. I can picture myself on one leg, trying to balance on one leg, leaning over the ladder, trying to do something, and that leg gets quaky after just a couple of minutes. So having the leverage, being able to work in a position that allows you to be efficient is so important. It brings me to a story that Terry Mounchy tells. He's one of my good friends. He's an industry giant, in my opinion. He has this leadership presentation. And in that presentation, he talks about his agency, and they were kind of plagued with the situation where aircraft was not available frequently. Their mission readiness was, in his mind, unacceptably too high. So he was trying to figure out how do I get my fleet to be, available for responses. So he asked his maintainers. He said, "What do you need? What do you want? And what makes you mad?" And he didn't only ask that to his maintainers, but that's, in relation to this story, who he asked the question to. And they kept, I guess there was multiple incidents where the maintainers were falling off ladders. There was prolonged injuries requiring them to be off duty for an extended amount of time. So you've got a shorthanded staff now trying to tend to the helicopters that are on hand. So the one thing they said was, we need ladders that we can actually work on. So I just thought it was interesting that same story is kind of told by Terry from a different perspective. But that was ultimately one of the tools that allowed him to get his aircraft to a point where they were able to respond to more incidents, and the readiness levels went up. So I think I quote Terry just about every time that I record. Love the guy. But again, very, very impactful story, and it kind of highlights the need. From your guys' perspective, Dale, what are you seeing as far as numbers go when you look at incidents of safety being reported, folks falling off, and I would imagine for some folks it's career ending.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
Yes, it is. I couldn't probably speak to hardcore data, but I got one little short story that kind of reflects upon that. This is a number of years ago. We had a National Guard unit out in the Midwest that gave me a call one day and said, "Hey, can you give us a quote for 4 HeliLadders?" So I give them a quote. About 6 months later, they give me another call. "Hey, can you refresh that quote for 6 more ladders? We're trying to push this through." Okay. I provide them another quote. A few months later, they call back again. "Hey, can you provide us a fresh quote? We're still trying to push this through." So I provide another quote. And a couple months later, they call me back. And this time the question was, "How soon can you get us our HeliLadders?" Well, their lead mechanic had taken a tumble off the top of the UH-72, shattered his forearm, busted up his elbow. And so their lead mechanic's now out of service. So they lose his leadership and insight and experience. They have workman's comp claims to pay. Their mission availability goes down because of all this. And suddenly people realize these are really, really inexpensive ladders if they prevent something like this from happening. And I've had, since then, I've had people call up and offer sincere thanks to the team we have here for getting the HeliLadder to them because it's fundamentally changed their work site. I've had gentlemen say, you just extended my career by 5 years. I was getting to the age where I could not stand on a conventional ladder all day anymore. And so they've extended their career. I've had some of our customers openly acknowledge one of the reasons they're purchasing the HeliLadders is to have a more presentable and professional hangar facility when they have new hires passing through. And when those new hires walk into a hangar and it's filled with our bright HeliLadders, that presents a different image than when they walk into a hangar and everybody's dangling off some piece of junk. And so they're actually using the presentation factor of the quality equipment as a reflection of their quality organization as a means to help attract and retain that very, very tight labor pool.
And that will also apply to, when new customers or even existing customers for us, when they walk in and see that ladder, it's a wow factor with that ladder too. Usually it's, man, that looks expensive. And I'm like, well, it is, but we can work on that thing all day long and not be tired. Look at this padding. It doesn't scratch up your $100,000 paint job so it has a lot of wow factor. I will agree with that too. Absolutely.
One of your quotes that I love is something to the effect of the most expensive ladder is the one you fall off of. It's something similar to that.
Yeah.
And so again, what you're creating is a great solution for the industry. I realize we're getting tight on time here. So I'll try and get things to where we can start talking about wrapping up. But there's something I want to talk about that I think is really important when it comes to our industry, and especially as a self-employed business owner. It takes the efforts of the full family to make what you've done successful. There's a lot of sacrifices that our families make because we're working weird hours. We're gone on holidays. We're gone on weekends a lot of times. But talk about the growth of your business and how your wife has helped you develop this business from essentially a carport operation, an operation you had in your workshop to where you are today.
Oh boy, there's that old saying, behind every successful man is a good woman. That's a half truth, because I would say you need a good woman by your side to hold your arm through the difficult times. You need that good woman behind you to push you forward when you're too exhausted to carry forward. You need that good woman ahead of you to help lead you down a better path and to help guide you when you're not quite sure where you're going. My wife, Susie, has been at my side since the very beginning. It's been challenging for both of us at times with the sacrifices that running a business requires. But she experienced firsthand my world in aviation and the challenges, and she understood the value of this product and how it would impact in a positive manner other people. And she's been there right along with me from start to finish on a daily basis, both in the moral support and the guidance, as well as helping to run the business with handling finances and customer relations and preparing and organizing for trade shows, supporting my travel when I hit the road to visit customers. Without question, this would not have happened if I had had a mate that was not quite as strong and determined as my wife, Susie.
I have to say, I had never met Dale before, and I feel like I knew everything there was to know about you, your business, because every time I've been to Expo, I've caught Susie, and her and I stood there and talked, and she was just the sweetest thing I've ever met. I literally told my husband, I'm like, I don't know. I couldn't remember your name, but I'm like, Susie, I'm like, she is like the face of HeliLadder. And it was so funny because she was like, she recognized me. She's like, "You're the helicopter girl." Oh, wait, Dale's busy. I'll get you guys linked up. She was cracking me up. But yeah, between her and Cody, you guys have a really good team. I can just tell, like, you've got a lot of people. And I really love to see how many young people that you have working at your booth too. I'm like, that's pretty awesome to see. But yeah, I just loved how enthusiastic she was about it. And I was like, "Oh, like, are you a mechanic? Are you?" And she's like, "Nope." She's like, "I just help run the business." And she just had so much pep in her step. I loved her.
Yeah, it's huge, having that person that supports you. And I think for me, someone who's like, "No, don't do that," or you're doing this, don't do that. I think that feedback is great, and our industry is tough. Whether you're on the self-employed side or the operational side, or in your guys' case both. So kudos to you guys. Really cool to hear those success stories. So my last question, I'll open up to Dale, you, and then Drew and Faith. For the young folks, we've talked about recruitment a little bit in the industry. What advice would you have for them other than working on a HeliLadder?
Yeah.
What advice would you have for those young folks coming into the industry? You've had a long career of success. What would you say to that young person?
Probably a couple things. First, be proud of your profession. You are not just the mechanic. You are the individual that provides a safe, airworthy, dependable aircraft for the flight team and the passengers. So be proud of your profession. Second, don't compromise your standards. You have a very, very serious obligation to maintain that aircraft. Do so, and don't let external drivers, outside influences, shift your responsibilities into cutting corners or taking the easy way. And then probably thirdly, certainly for the not only the young mechanics, but all mechanics, is be willing to be a advocate for yourself, for your peers, for the industry. And by that, I don't mean be a troublemaker, but be willing to step up. And as an example, if the lighting in your hangar is poor, petition for better lighting. If in the hospital world, the nurses and pilots like to hang around the hangar and chit-chat while you're performing maintenance, be assertive enough to go up to them and ask them to take that chit-chat to the cafeteria you're working. If the ground support equipment is poor, and this is not a sales pitch, but if the ground support equipment isn't up to task, request better ground support equipment. So those would be part of the three things for the younger mechanics. I'm going to segue just for one comment beyond the mechanics. And this would be more commentary, at risk of sounding like I'm lecturing, but commentary for the supervisors, the program managers, the upper echelon, the owners. And I'd want them to ponder this thought. If they are not actively supporting the process of quality maintenance, they're by default impeding the process of quality maintenance. That those folks need to stay in tune with the needs of the maintenance team and provide them with what they need to perform at their best. And that's not going from the perspective, oh, the mechanics are special and they should be treated special. This is simple economics. Provide for the mechanics, they perform at a higher level, mission availability goes up, aircraft availability goes up, everyone gains on that.
Yeah, 100%. It kind of ties into what Terry said. Asking your folks in the maintenance segment of your business, what do you need? What do you want? What makes you mad?
Yeah.
I think if you ask that question around your operation and you really take into account what's being said, I think good things will follow. Love all that. Drew, for you, what words of wisdom would you bring in?
Thank you to our sponsor, Rotorcraft Repair and Manufacturing, manufacturer of DSX, Dragon Skin Extreme, an FFA-approved rotor blade leading-edge erosion corrosion protective coating with a proven record of durability in harsh environments like sand and rain. Contact Seth at rotorcraft.biz and stop wasting money on other so-called erosion coatings.
So we're seeing a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but we've seen a lot of young folks, younger younger folks come through our shop, whether they're touring or they're just starting out in A&P school, or they've called and said, "Hey, I want to come explore your shop and see what you guys do," or something of that nature. And so far, I've trained 2 young mechanics that had 0 experience. One of them had so little experience that he cut safety wire with flush cuts. And, I get it. He's new. Okay. But we have to take the time to train these new folks and spend time with them and nurture them and make sure they get to the level of what Dale just mentioned. A good quality, safe product. It might not be the fastest. You may not be the best of the best, but take your time, and training is so important. I've been fortunate that I have been around excellent mechanics my whole entire life, right? I still try and be on that level of mechanic. Even some of these guys are way more senior than I am, and they've just taken the time to educate me and get me to where I'm going. The young people that are out there have attention span about that long. And when you try and train them, they a lot of times don't listen or they don't get it. So I think for us and me, we have to spend time with them and give them a chance. I wouldn't say let them fail, but don't beat them up if they do fail. Let's figure out what happened. Let's change the way we're doing it. Go review the manual, see what happened. Just don't fire them, for lack of better words. Just educate them. I think that'll go a lot further than just all right, well, we're done training, see you, bye. And we're proud to say that we've had two folks come through here that had 0 time to A&P, and they've worked here while they were getting their airframe and power plant certificates. And I hope the latest one we have here stays for a long time, but you know how the helicopter industry is. You got to go where you got to go. But I would say just for people to be patient with younger mechanics, because some people may cut safety wire with flush cuts because they don't know any better, So it's our job as senior people or mid senior people to educate these young folks. So
yeah, it's easy to forget, right? When you were new to whatever industry you're a part of, the mistakes you made and the things that you felt dumb asking, and so the longer you're away from that, the more you expect folks just to understand these processes. And it's incumbent upon us as an industry to, again, like you said, realize that these folks are new. I need to be that mentor. I need to be approachable and teach them things, not expect them to understand because they don't have the experience. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah. And that's a tough thing for me to do I wouldn't say I'm young, but it's been a learning curve for me too, because my patience isn't the best sometimes. And it's easy if I just go do it, right? And I can do it faster and more efficient, and then I can move on to something else. Well, if we don't step back and take the time to show the younger folks what needs to be done, there's not going to be any folks eventually, So it's important. At least for me, it's important that we take the time to show new people what needs to be done and how it should be done, So
Faith, one of the things I love about you is you take that time. I mean, it's literally your job, but I think you do it otherwise. You take the time to help folks, and you've become a mentor to a lot of people, through your personal interactions with them and your interactions digitally with them through your platform. You're reaching a broad category and segment of people that we really need to be reached. So kudos to you for all the efforts you put in there, whether it's with the youth or the young generation of folks that are coming into the industry, or the seasoned ones that you work with on a daily basis with your company. So kudos to you on that. But with that in mind, any insights on kind of what we've talked about here?
Yeah, I think, you never stop being the mentee. right? That never stops ever. And if you say it has, you're pretty well at that point where you're about done. I think that was one of the big things I would, always advocate to people is don't be too prideful. And I'm not saying don't have pride in your work, because you should absolutely have pride in your work if you're in this industry at all, whether you're flying or whether you're maintaining. You should be trying to do that to the highest level that you can. But ask questions. I have never been that person that I have to give off the illusion that I'm the smartest person in the room. If you don't think that you can't learn anything from, the hangar man that takes care of the trash and has been around helicopters longer than you've been alive, you're not doing it right. I can't tell you how many things I've picked up from people that I'm like, didn't know that. That's really interesting. So it's crazy in my short time that I've been in my career, the people that I've met that, like you were talking about, Drew, like you're the mentor to those two kids. The guy that taught me when I started off with my A&P, he would tell me all the time, he's like, well, I'm not a very good instructor. And then would go on to tell me how, a system worked, and it finally clicked. You know what I mean? Just him talking in layman's terms versus me Googling it or trying to read in a book, how he would break things down. I'm like, dude, you're like an awesome teacher. Like, you should do this for more people than just me. This is really clicking. Mm-hmm. And so I try to do that with other people as best I can. And I joke with some of my students because I'm like, I'm going to womansplain this to you. So I'm sorry if it's really long, but I really want to make sure that you understand it. And so they're like, no, this is fantastic. So I'm glad I've gotten good feedback. And then there are other things I know I need to educate myself and work on and areas that are of weakness. And that kind of rolls into, I guess, my second biggest piece of advice would be, you're going to have to be uncomfortable to get better. If you stay in your box and you're just content and you want to, like I talked about earlier, punch a clock, punch in, punch out, fine. Nothing wrong with that. But if you truly want to get better at something, you're going to have to be uncomfortable. You're going to have to put yourself in situations where, you are the lowest man on the totem pole, or you're shadowing a job that that you're not the best person at. But good news is you got the guy next to you that's the expert. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to look like a ding-a-ling, or people are going to be like, you've been in aviation for how long? How do you not know that? That's one thing that I never do, is the minute that I figure out, maybe they're not grasping, what I said, I never make them feel small. That is the quickest way to deter somebody from not continuing. I would quite literally rather feel pain than embarrassment. I hate feeling embarrassed. And I know that a lot of grown men very much are that way. And so a lot of the guys I've met will give off the illusion that they are understanding. And so sometimes, like I said, I'll take it a level deeper and be like, hey, just because I'm getting some glazed over looks, did I not explain this acronym? Have you guys ever heard this term before? And you guys know how much of a beast aviation is. It's the FARs are written, for lawyers, by lawyers. It's very intimidating if you're on the outside looking in. So I try my best to make it as inviting and be like, yeah, there's a lot of rules. There's a lot of things we have to follow. But I promise you, if you try to do your best, you go with the flow and you're honest about everything that you do, you're going to be just fine. But you are drinking from a fire hose, so buckle up. But,
yeah. But I think that's one of the best parts about our industry is there's a constant challenge. There's always something that you can learn beyond what you know, which to me is engaging. I would not do well in an environment where you've reached mastery and there's nowhere to go from there. I don't think anybody's reached mastery in our industry. There's people that are really good, but there's always the next challenge, so 100% agree with that faith. And this has been
you tried taking on a 222. What? You think you know a thing or two? Well, come on down. We got something for you.
This has
right, Dale?
Yep.
This has been an awesome conversation. Thank you guys for taking the time to join us. It's one of the best conversations that I've had in a long time. So thank you for contributing. And last thing that I'll ask before we close out is, Dale, for folks that are looking for more information on HeliLadder, where could they find that?
HeliLadder.com.
Easy enough.
Easy enough. And if you shoot out a quote request, you'll be getting a response from either myself or Ian or Cody. It'll be a personal response. We'll work with you.
Awesome. Well, the next show that you guys will be at, is it the MRO, Vertical MRO show? All right.
Up in Canada. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
We'll see you in Kelowna. And we're going to see you in Irving as well?
Yes.
All right. Well, look forward to seeing you and meeting you in person and meeting Susie. Drew, you going to be at the MRO conference?
Yes, I will be there.
All right. Faith, you're missing out.
I know. Bell School. I'm so excited, but there's so much stuff happening this year.
Yeah.
Well, look forward to seeing y'all. Thanks again, and we'll catch you later.
It was fun. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you.
See you guys.
Stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information. Thank you to our sponsor, Rotorcraft Repair and Manufacturing, manufacturer of DSX, Dragon Skin Extreme, an FFA approved rotor blade leading edge erosion corrosion protective coating with a proven record of durability in harsh environments like sand and rain. Contact Seth at rotorcraft.biz and stop wasting money on other so-called erosion coatings.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS and in partnership with Vertical Magazine. We hope you enjoyed our in-depth conversation with Dale Neubauer and Drew Benton Jr., where they shared their inspiring journeys in the helicopter community, discussed the importance of teamwork and communication, and highlighted the critical role maintenance plays in safety and patient outcomes. A special thanks to Dale for sharing his personal story and insights into the founding of HeliLadder, driven by a passion to revolutionize aircraft maintenance safety and efficiency. We appreciate your time and engagement, and we look forward to bringing you more stories from the helicopter industry. Until next time, be safe and stay innovative. Catch you next time on the Vertical MRO Podcast.